What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. We have a great one today with a guest, Jen O'Brien, who is the director of the American Special Hockey Association. I'm not going to lie to you, we have just a fantastic conversation, a lot of education here about hockey players within her organization and terminology that we use within the game, but really it comes down to how big of a community the hockey world is. It's a really special episode. I was really glad that we did it, and Jen was just a rock star in this one. So make sure you take some time to listen to this one. Also, it's the off season now when you're listening to this, most likely, and your kid probably has summer reading to do. So we're going to encourage you once again to head over to whenhockeystops.com to get your copy of When Hockey Stops, the book that Christie and I wrote, or you can head over to Amazon, Target, Walmart, all the other places, Barnes & Noble, where books are sold. But if you want that signed edition with the special gifts, whenhockeystops.com. Oh, look, without further ado, enjoy this episode of Our Kids Play Hockey with Jen O'Brien. Hello, hockey friends and families around the world, and welcome to another edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. My name is Lee Elias, and I'm joined, as always, by my good friends Christy Casciano-Burns and Mike Bonelli, and we are privileged to have Jen O'Brien with us today. Jen is the executive director of the American Special Hockey Association, a group that supports organizations and athletes with special needs as they strive to achieve their goals within hockey. Jen also serves as a delegate to the UN Commission on the Status of Women, as well as the Executive Board of American Mothers Incorporated, and was recognized as the 2018 New York Mother of the Year. All those mothers out there said that you were the best mother of the year. We actually found her, and she's here on our show today. I'm just kidding. All of you are awesome mothers, but you did receive that high praise. So, Jen, I can't wait to learn more about you, ASHA, and all that you do. Welcome to Our Kids Play Hockey.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
No, the pleasure is ours. And I think we should just start off with talking about ASHA and the organization and everything that you do there and why it's important when we use that Hockey is for Everyone moniker all the time, right? You're a big part of that.
I am, but our athletes and our coaches are, I happen to represent about 5,000 folks from Alaska to Florida. There's 116 member informing organizations involved with our association right now. We actually had 3 new team inquiries over the weekend. So I have a feeling next year that number is just going to continue to grow. It's pretty amazing to see how the special hockey teams connect with their local hockey communities. So it's not just the people who are registered and they're part of ASHA. It's really about making sure that we are supporting those organizations as they welcome more and more people of all abilities to the local teams and the local organizations and to kind of grow the game at the very grassroots level. And that's where we really focus, is on supporting that effort as best as we possibly can and uplifting that everybody is able to get in the game.
How do we expand? I know you've done a great job, but I'm looking at even my own area. There's not a lot about it here.
No, actually in your area we've had like 3 starts, and we had one solid start thanks to the Jim and Julie Boeheim Foundation, and God bless Julie Boeheim. She is as wonderful. I know it's cross sport, but she is as magnificent as a human being as they've ever portrayed out there. And she's had kind of a bumpy last couple months, and she her response always is so much care. But we actually have a team ready to go as soon as the whole COVID thing kind of lifts. So we have some stuff going up at Syracuse University. And then we'll be growing beyond that. So we just picked up 2 more families. We're kind of sending them to Rochester for this season. And then we'll keep it. But again, that's part of our network. When we get more requests in, then we start spreading it out. But obviously spreading the word in every community, it's that word of mouth that makes all the difference.
Yeah, I want to help you do that. So be sure to contact
I'm in.
They're ready to launch.
See that we're making connections here.
Yeah.
Do me a favor. Like, look, there's always a stigma surrounding anybody. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us about your athletes? And specific or not specific, but tell us about your athletes. Tell us about what the game means to them. Again, and anybody involved in this organization, right? Because I imagine that the experience is wonderful for everyone all around.
So that's a really big question. Like when you say, tell us about your athletes, because you say that and like, I get this like flash in front of me of like all these faces. And I think what I want people to know most is every one of our athletes are no different than any other athlete, anybody out there. They're individual. They have their own set of skill sets. They have their own set of abilities. Not everybody is good at everything. And a friend named Bryant McBride, who always said, he has this wisdom about hockey, and he says, everybody falls down and everybody gets up. it's an equal play. It makes it an equal playing field. And that is certainly true about ours. But I will say uniquely to ASHA athletes is that they never forget a statistic ever. They never forget a detail ever. They will hold everybody accountable to any promise that's ever made. And they keep their promises. So if they say they're going to do something, they're going to do it. There's not a lot of craziness in, as far as, people telling stories, this, that, or the other. This straight on honesty. There's an honest love for the game. And the kids that come to ASHA first, they're not always 5. Sometimes they're 12, sometimes they're 40, sometimes they're 30. We can have from 5 to 60 on the same bench. It depends on their ability. That's how we rate everybody, and how when they play according to their abilities, not necessarily their age. And we are also the most diverse league in the continent that we know of. We are 15.4% identifying non-white. You will always find a diverse bench, boys, girls, all cultures, all languages. Some are non-speaking, but our community as a whole has a real love for the hockey. And when you ask me about who our athletes are, they love the game. They are what is really, really good about the game. They're the fans in the stands that are cheering you on, whether you are winning or you are losing. They're cheering their benchmates on, whether you're winning or they're losing. And if they score, they often apologize to the goalie. Sorry, I scored on you. Like, that's a common thing. We have stinky sock penalties in our league to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to feel like they can be a contributing factor. So if somebody on one team sees that somebody else isn't scoring and they keep trying, stinky sock penalties come, and everybody naturally knows how to make it be a dignified moment for everyone to achieve their goal. It's not about scoring, it's about achieving. So when you ask me again, what about those athletes? Each one of them has a unique ability to bring the best to this sport, and the sport brings out the best in them. And it's my pleasure to serve them.
Yeah, and
all teams adopt that.
Yeah, that's exactly the answer I was hoping to draw out of you, because we've had a lot of different guests on this show under the hockey is for everyone type conversation. And I've always been amazed in this game. I remember 20 years ago, people, ESPN, we can't have hockey on ESPN. And it's like, guys, we don't have time to argue amongst ourselves to grow this game. And I've always said that, and we've talked about this, Christy, with your daughter, she's a women's hockey player. Like, no, she's a hockey player. We talk about that. A hockey player is a hockey player, background, race, anything, right? And I love that you answered that way, because that's the truth in the game, is that hockey players are hockey players. We're all part of the same hockey family, hockey community, right? And again, you're an organization that strives to achieve that as well. And I love that.
Thanks. We really enjoy what we do.
Yeah, I think, from your perspective, Jen, working with your programs personally, and, having the opportunity to work with a lot of your leaders, one of the things that I found, which is one of the most beneficial pieces of your program, is what you give back to people that want to give back. Like, Lee kind of alluded to it earlier, like, there's actually so much joy in you as a able-bodied person, or, somebody that's in the game of hockey, to be able to go out there and teach hockey and to players that want to learn. And I think just as importantly, maybe, and you can even talk about this, about your volunteers, the amount of young kids and young hockey players that get involved with your hockey players, and seamlessly, I actually probably do a better job. Like, they seamlessly go in, and they don't, kids don't see the stigma in kids, and maybe they're uncomfortable, and maybe they don't know really how to, like my son just took he's in scouting, right? So he took a whole merit badge course on, working with disabilities, and that's a merit badge. But it's almost like when I'm sitting there watching it going, this should be for every kid. Like, right. All children should know how to work with other children of disabilities, and look at them in not in a different way, but understand the challenges that they have, so that they can add more to the environment that these kids are in. So maybe, can you talk about, we could talk about your high level volunteers, the people that like that you're doing, right? Filling warehouses up with equipment and getting it out, but really talk about how important it is for the grassroots kids and coaches and people to get involved in their local community, and not be afraid do that. And I'm hoping I'm using the right term and verbiage, but feeling like not feeling uncomfortable that you can't go in there and help.
And Jen, feel free to tell us if we use the wrong verbiage here. And Mike, I'm sure you'd agree.
I will. Don't worry.
Yeah, please do. Look, part of breaking any stigma is having the conversation. And I'll dive into that in a minute, but I want Mike's question to be there first.
So the question really is about like our teenage and our younger volunteers. And I think it's really important. It's actually a key component of all of our teams, is the local youth hockey involvement. And I often tell our folks to go look for the kids that are in the penalty box too much. They're fighting too much. There's something about the game that they love, but they're not really sitting well in their skin with it, and find them a way to get out of the, kind of the grind. There is a grind involved with this. And so how do you find out your love for the game again? Well, get involved with us and you'll find the love for the game.
Right.
Specifically, we have about 1,300 youth hockey across the country that are regular registered volunteers for their organization. And all of them bring the most important component, and that's peer-to-peer relationships. You can coach a kid all you want. It's just another adult talking down. But this is about the social aspect. Unlike typical hockey, we're not talking about going to win on championships and all this other stuff. This is about building social and emotional relationships with your peers, learning how to do things, be more independent, all of those, what we call ADLs, or activities of daily living. Like, how do you get from point A to point B? People with special needs use teamwork to do that on a daily basis. They've had to do that from day one. They've had to have someone assisting them. So if you have to have someone assisting you, you have to learn how to use teamwork. And so there's a lot that individuals with disabilities can help typical kids kind of humble up a little bit and learn about, let's slow down and take this step by step by step. So that peer interaction that happens between our typical junior coaches or mentors, it depends on the team, what they call them, and our athletes is huge. And they form lifelong friendships, and those friendships are incredibly impactful later on in the, whether they're on the ice or off the ice. These are people who have normal, typical, strengthened friendships because of hockey. Now, I think we can all agree that that is one of the things that hockey does uniquely than any other sport, is that you have a band of brothers or sisters or friends, and you become very, very connected to them for lifelong, and those pickup games happen, and the street hockey happens, and all the other things that happens with special hockey. But it's because kids enter our program as mentors or junior mentors, they're able to actually grow the skills that their hockey skills. They've been coached. They know how to translate the coaching to their game. Now, how do they translate all that coaching into their life skills and their life goals, and learning how to take that information and help their life moving forward? And we really, really search out really good ones. And we also do a lot to recognize them. We have scholarships. We do a lot of recognizing of our junior coaches, and we're always looking for the ones that are hiding, the quiet ones. And we might not put a big banner up, but that might be a letter from me. It might be a quiet scholarship or something that we know. We're always looking to recognize them, because, sometimes you just have to be seen, and they're taking the time to see our athletes, not through some kind of veil of a stigma, as you said.
Right.
They don't really care. As a matter of fact, most of them will tell you that the best friend they'll ever have is somebody with autism, because they're the truest friend. And when they're having trouble in math, they always know they have a friend to call. There's always a phone a friend with our group. And it's remarkable how those relationships grow. And again, as you asked me before, you asked me this question, I see faces. We lost two really amazing junior coaches this past year, both in highly publicized accidents. And it was out, the outpouring of love from everybody to both Connecticut and into the Philly area was huge. And I think that was a testament to the impact that these young men and women have on our athletes.
Oh, we're so sorry to hear of your losses. Our hearts go out to the families as well. Jen, I was wondering if you might be able to share a story or two of some of the benefits you've seen. Maybe, a child comes to mind who, you could share their story with us of the real difference that the program makes in their lives.
One, I feel bad that I'm the one to be saying this. I mean, Mike, you've been on the ice with a couple as well. And so Mike, oh, he smiled. I think we're going to get Mike to maybe tell a little bit about what his experience is.
That's a
like.
nice smile. For those of you listening, Mike's got a big smile on right now. That's not his normal smile.
Rare.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's rare, but yeah, go ahead, Jen.
Maybe I'll bring up, I mean, there's some that I can talk about publicly and some I kind of leave to their own private stories. I think there's two that I would bring up specifically. One is he was in his 30s. He picked up the phone. He called our program here in Binghamton, and he says, I see you have a special hockey team I'd like to join. And the person who answered the phone at the time was working in an office that I was in. And she was like, he's 30, everybody else is 8. This isn't going to work. Da, 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 da. And I'm like, hear him out. And Taylor showed up at a rink here in Binghamton. It's called the Polar Cap. It's kind of infamous in its own way. It's kind of a little stuck down in a little hole of the wall place, but it's a wonderful place. And it's now called the Ice House. And the guy's incredible to us. But Taylor walked in and he said, I know I'm too old, but I wanted like to be a coach. And he's clearly on the spectrum. And that was 6 years ago. And he now plays on 2 other special hockey teams because he's an A-level player, but he comes back every Friday to coach the team here. And what he has done since is he's learned job skills. He's gotten a job. We're always looking to figure out a way to get him hired by a rink or do something. I mean, everybody's always trying to figure out how to hire Taylor. But what we realized was that Taylor had the ability to bring out the best in all of us. So when I really need like a Jiminy Cricket, I don't call certain people. I'll actually call Taylor. And when I've met with the NHL executives, I've often say, I don't work for the brand or you guys. I work for Taylor. And because he's the one who's going to hold me accountable, and I'm a volunteer too, but at least I know that he values me and my time. And I love his love for statistics. And so it really helps me understand the game a little bit better. And especially when we have like an alumni coming in, I'll call him up and I'll get like 3 syllables of the names out. And he's automatically telling me the guy's whole career. But Taylor is a really great story about how getting involved with special hockey, even though he was already involved with hockey, he kind of burst his limit. He couldn't play anywhere else. He didn't have anything else to play because nobody else knew what to do with him. Right. So he was feeling really low in his game, and then he came to special hockey and he found out that he found acceptance and he found a lot of encouragement, and it really brought out something in him. So he's a good example of what this does for someone who's in their late 20s, 30s, who's, beer league isn't really a good fit. They can't play where are they going to go to play this game anymore? So we really search for places and ways to get them accepted.
Jen, what's funny about, it was not funny, what's amazing about that story, I should say, is we have a lot of conversations on this show about parents, and, that the focus is not about you, it's about the player. And you just described that, right? Like in the sense of like, this isn't about me, this isn't about the NHL, this is about him. Mm-hmm. That's such an important aspect that, look, I've said this before. I don't think any parent, or I should say 99.9% of parents aren't going out there not caring about their kid. That's not the point, but it's very easy to forget, and get into the game and you need to do this. And you forget hey, wait, we're not here for you, right? We're here for them. One thing I want to do on this episode is I want to provide a lot of education for the audience. And, up to this point, I'm sure the audience is listening. This is a great story, but I want to talk about the stigma even more. I want to talk about terminology. Because I don't know, right? I always make myself vulnerable. I'm not even sure I know the right terminology. What is the correct way? What is not? What are things that we shouldn't be saying? And if I may, I want to tell you just 2 quick stories before we lead into that, because I've had some experience in this world with this stuff. And I was reading this great article the other day of a parent whose child had severe Down syndrome, and they were on a plane. And there was a child in the seat ahead of them, looking, just staring, right? Because they were curious. And the mother of the child ahead of them said, no, don't do that. Turn around, don't look. And the parent wisely said, no, it's okay. It's okay for your child to be curious. And I remember thinking that triggered the second story I'm about to tell you, but right, it's this idea of, no, that's the stigma. This is a human being sitting here, right? You don't ignore it and turn back. You can ask questions, you can learn. That's how progress is made. I was working at of all things, a sports broadcasting camp many years ago. Right. And this kid changed my life. I remember we were in Baltimore and a kid was disabled from the waist down. All right. He was in a wheelchair and he met one of his sports heroes. Right. And I this kid will never walk. That's the point I'm trying to make. And he met his hero and he looked at me, and I was an athlete at the time. And he said, man, don't you just wish you were me? And he was dead serious. Right. And I remember, man, you talk about perspective immediately. I was just like, wow, like that really put things in perspective for me of he can't walk and he's serious. Like he's on cloud 9 right now. This is not something he thinks about like that. Right. Like that's his life. He's living his life. And don't you wish you were me? And then I had the privilege when I lived in England I was working with a professional hockey team and I would go to the special schools, that's what they called them, and work with those kids. And it was so rewarding in the sense of not just for me and the kids, but for me, because when you walk, I would walk into these schools and I'm not gonna lie to you, it's almost like nervous when you walk in because it's not a normal scenario. Right. And within minutes, you just realize like, what, man, none of this is ridiculous thinking. These are kids and they're just having fun. So I'm sharing these stories because if I hadn't experienced those things, I might still be I don't want to talk about it, like, let's ignore it. I don't want our audience to walk away from this episode thinking that's really nice what they do. I want them to know, hey, listen, here's what you can do. Here's some things that people say all the time that maybe they shouldn't say. Here's how we can be better as a hockey community for everyone involved, right? Is that a good setup? I'm trying to set you up. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's amazing setup. I'm sorry. I mean, I have to laugh because don't you wish you were me?
That was brilliant.
I've actually heard that said before. And I say that it's like, what is someone I heard lately? Oh, I have a charmed life. Don't you understand? I mean, that was right. Like, yeah, you kind of do, I get everything I need, life is good. But I think when we talk about the stigma, I think the parent on the plane, I've actually read that story and it's true.
Right.
There is no stranger if you say hello first. And I think that's something that's, learning just how to say hello. And, are we used to stares? Yeah, we're used to stares. I think the hardest part for us, what term not to use, obviously the R word. And we talk about that.
Right.
There is not a week that doesn't go by where that is not said somewhere in around the locker room of any of our teams when they go in. And it might be recently it was like a dad telling his kid, what are you blank because you left your helmet in the car right in front of a whole special hockey team.
Wow.
And everybody's head whips around and the guy looked completely mortified because it just rolled off his tongue.
Right. Well, maybe that was a learning moment for him, right?
It was, but it was also a learning moment for everybody else. But of course, the kid who's sitting next to him goes, hey, it's all right. Sometimes that happens. That's the response, I think I think the stigma that I'd like to talk about is that special hockey has to look, or special hockey players have to look just like other special hockey or just like other hockey. And or that they have to do things exactly the same way. Nobody, not a single athlete, American special shared sympathy. You don't have to feel bad for them, and getting involved with our teams doesn't make anybody a better human being. What it does is that it invites more people to become more in a community and grow that community to be more diverse in every way. Not everybody is good at everything. So everybody is disabled in one way or the other. 1 in every 44 Americans are, impacted by a disability in one way or the other. Disabled folks are the largest minority of folks that everybody could possibly be a part of. One of the things I said in a meeting once, I listened to this whole big presentation about inclusion and equity and, diversity. And obviously they had nothing to do with special needs or disabilities in the entire conversation. We got through this whole thing. I put my hand up and asked a question. I said, when are you going to realize you're one hit away from being one of us? It kind of killed the whole joy of the presentation. But the point is that I think people need to realize that we're all human. Right. And if you're looking at a stigma, then what would you feel like if it were you? If you were the one there, stop and ask yourself, if that were me, how would I feel? I think another thing people have to realize is that stigma is often based in grief. If that were to happen to us, we would feel sad. We would feel a loss because we knew a difference. But for our individuals, they have an entire bunch of abundance of things that you don't know about yet. So take that time to think about what they do have. And what they could have is a friend in you. And let's start there.
Yeah, Jen, just to define a little bit, to kind of frame this for anybody like might be listening in or wants to get involved with American Special Hockey or thinks they might have a player that could be involved with American Special Hockey. Give us the parameters. Now, I know it could be pretty broad, right? But give us the parameters. Because I mean, you just made the point, like, it doesn't have to look like I work with New York City with the New York blind hockey guys. And, their puck is the size of it's huge. It's a huge metal, loud puck, right? Because it has to be adapted. So talk little bit when you look out at American Special Hockey practice and you see all these kids gathering and all over the country, what does that look like? I mean, what's the two ends of the spectrum that parents might seek out their children playing American Special Hockey?
Oh, that's fantastic. So my two ends of the spectrum are this. We might have an individual who is 8 years old. He loves hockey on TV. His dad loves the sport. His mom and his siblings, everybody loves the sport, but he may be on the autistic spectrum, very sensory. And if we can get him to come into the rink and sit on a chair next to the rink and maybe get him onto the ice and inch by inch, get him there slowly, that's one end of the spectrum. 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes. We just keep going for as long as we're engaging. It eventually catches. As long as the parents let the coaches do their job, that it eventually catches. I have absolute, it's amazing the amount of people who skate. There's something about how the equipment hugs you, the sensory of it. There's something very, very unique about hockey, about the equipment, the ice, the environment, the lighting, everything that is almost so sensory stimulating that it's soothing to the most unlikely of person. And so I've seen people who are completely not hockey people end up finding that hockey is an amazing sport for them. Likewise, on the other end of the spectrum, I have two women who play who could outskate Ovechkin, and I'm not joking. They really could. They're amazing on, they have an uncanny abilities. However, they are definitely have special needs, and special hockey needs to be adapted for them for many reasons. We have such a wide variety of needs. So we have to adapt every game for every bench, for every time. So there's a lot of communication that has to happen between coaches to make every single time we get together effective. But what isn't typical is what it looks like. There are typical practices and you can see them, but for the most part, if you were to go into the underworkings of it all, every single thing is a movie. It's always moving. Talking to the parents, how are they? What's going on? What are their needs? There's tons of adjustments being made, and the dedication of the coaches and the volunteers and the parents to make sure that it becomes fully accessible starts with communication, and communication is universal. It can be, it can be pictures, it can be storyboards, it can be however it is. But when you're looking at the athletes, you also have to remember that they have so many different varying abilities. You can't make an assumption of what you're looking at. So it looks completely different. Sometimes it looks like a 3-ring circus, and that's fantastic. Sometimes that 3-ring circus, morphs into a scrimmage at the end of a game, and every adult and at the rink is like teary-eyed. And I do want to tell my favorite story.
Please.
And my favorite story to share, and it always kind of chokes me up, but is every time there's a festival, and we have 22 a year, and we had 21 this past year, but we know we have 22 festivals a year. But every festival has at least one brand new parent, somebody who's brand new and they thought their kid could never do it. Doesn't matter their age of their kid or whatever. And they don't quite fit in. They don't know anybody yet. They show up to these festivals and they're like, everybody knows what a hockey tournament's like. It's chaos, So they always find themselves at the end of the rink by the net, and they stand alone. And they stand there, and eventually people start realizing, oh, that's the new kids pair. It doesn't even matter which team it is, they know. And they start to kind of gather around, not next to them. They give them space. They don't even notice. And eventually somebody notices that they need to score. So there's nothing said. It's all nonverbal. And eventually there's a setup where they make sure that that athlete scores, no matter how hard it takes, right on the ice by the parent. And then the parent turns around and realizes that they now have a whole team behind them. And there's not a dry eye in the house. The whole place erupts, and it's pure love for the game. And those are the moments that that doesn't matter how good you think you are or how bad you think you can be, you're always able to play this game together.
Jen, that's a beautiful story.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. And then introducing the whole concept of a team, something that these children probably never experienced in their lives before.
No, and they don't know how to, how do you feel like you have a teammate, and team parties and being invited to a birthday party? Oh my Lord. Our kids don't get invited to birthday parties. And then all of a sudden they have 30 birthday parties they get to go to a year. And it's remarkable.
I'm gonna start crying.
And it's real. And and they may find it at 5 and they may find it like Taylor at 30, but they find it. And for those who need it, there.
Jen, here's a great question. And Mike, this is for you and Christie as well. It's more of a, thought. We're obviously talking about this in the context of special hockey right now, right? It's like, people listen to this. Tell me that's not how it should be everywhere all the time. It shouldn't, right? Like we could learn from you. You understand what I mean? Like we talk about this all the time. Hockey's for everyone. Hockey is hockey. And the truth is this, is that I think people get so lost on ability, and I'm not talking about special needs. I'm talking about skill just in general right now, and where my kid's going. We forget the basic elements of why we play sport. This isn't even limited to hockey. You said it's a community. Again, we're recording this towards the end of the season, and we're seeing communities break down because evaluations are happening right now. You know what I mean? And it's like, man, that's the best part. Like, I keep thinking it doesn't have to be this way, right? So when I look at
the model right there.
Exactly,
the right.
And
we should be duplicating that.
Right.
Absolutely. You need to write a playbook for everybody.
You should. Listen, I mean it. I mean, look, youth hockey, which is great, and just hockey in general, which is great. I'm telling you, we forget some of the most important lessons that the game provides, which is, as you said, and tell me how it's any different, right? Friendship, community, teamwork, communication. I was just thinking when you were speaking, Mike, you'll get this too, right? Christie, you'll understand this from dealing with coaches. I've said this to a lot of coaches that I work with. You can be the best tactician on the planet, the best. I mean it by a mile. If you can't communicate those tactics, you're worthless as a coach, right? You have to be able to learn how to communicate. And I love that you said we have to communicate in so many different ways with our athletes, right? Like, I'm curious now, like, I'd like to learn those ways, as a coach, just to learn. Mike, you look like you want to say something. Sorry.
Yeah, no. I think what Jen has done with her group is, create a program, right? That really people want to continue to give to, right? If they weren't doing, God's work, but really they're doing, if they're not giving opportunity to the people that need it the most, then she wouldn't get the support she gets. So
That's
Jen,
true.
talk about a little bit about Bauer, the NHL, your partners in the NHL, like these players that go like that. You don't need to seek out; they seek out you. And talk about I'd love to hear more about the Rink of Dreams that I see on Facebook and Instagram and stuff, because I think this is where all of us as a hockey community, number one, will be jealous. Number two, have to say, wow, this is something like I can actually get involved with this and be a part of a positive change. And to your point, not to make me feel good, but to make all these other people feel good. And I think, and that in turn makes you feel good. It's just like anything else you do, right? Your gift, the gift you get is giving. And I think that's where your organization is the epitome of that.
So I'm going to make one correction, actually, is I didn't create anything. I actually have to steward something, and I have to steward a mission. And I think that I would like to just make that really clear, is that I like to say there's 116 organizations out there who believe that they invented the game. And the truth is they did for themselves and their own community, because it's so unique. And I think that's really important. The idea of special hockey came to the United States about 27 years ago, and it's kind of grown from there. And it has evolved in so many different ways. I just happen to be kind of a not-for-profit governance person and things like that. So I hate to, thanks for saying I created something. The truth is that my job is to kind of steward it along, but also uplift the creations of other people. And that's the beauty of it, is that there is
well, however you want to define it is fine. Somebody has to steer the ship. I mean, the bottom line is you can't just, it's just not, you know.
Yeah.
It's not Seinfeld here. You know, you can take the reservation. You got to keep the
call you
reservation.
the captain of this.
But I think it's just, but I think what you're doing, again, the credit has to go to somebody. You can give the credit out to everybody. Great. I just want to hear more about okay, that component is going, the wheel is rolling. What are all the other people that have to come involved in there to help you continue to steward the program?
So let's talk about the NHL. The NHL, our relationship with the NHL at the league level, when I first started, was they didn't really have anything to do with us. They didn't know about us. My very first day on the job was actually a meeting at the NHL offices. And I thought I had come to the Mecca, like, oh, here I am. I walk in, this is great. And when I realized I was being called to the principal's office, and that's really what the meeting was more like. And it was she's now the commissioner of women's soccer, it was Jessica Berman. And it was a really intimidating meeting, but it was a good one. And in the end, she had our back, and she really kind of needed to help me understand how the hockey culture was at the time, and where the hockey culture was pretty much going. When Kim Davis came on board with the NHL, it was a complete game changer for us. And Kim is an absolute dynamically, incredibly wise woman, an amazing mentor to me, and a good friend. And she is to so many. But Kim really put her, her money where the mouth was in many ways. We don't get a lot of funding, but what we do is a lot of support. The first thing I woke up to this morning was a call from the NHL going, hey, it's World Down Syndrome Day is coming up. Make sure we have what we need. So they're looking for information. And right now, hockey doesn't have a lot of bandwidth. We hear that a lot. There's a lack of bandwidth. Well, they use us, rather than use us as a checkbox, we've encouraged them to use us as that bandwidth. So they come to us for those resources. So we really work closely with the NHL at the league level for that, but also making sure that certain things are consistent across their league and across their markets. I did say once to them that, hey, you've got 32 teams. I got 116. I don't know what you guys are like all worried about, because I got all what, let's put this in perspective. But, maybe a bit different, but but the league is really supportive, but each individual market is as well. And so you'll find the Minnesota Wild supports a very specific league of their own, which is Minnesota Special Hockey. And then Chicago also has something very similar. Washington Capitals have 7 teams. Wow. Philadelphia has 6 in their area. Boston has 11. So we kind of work with each market or each NHL club to grow. Seattle Kraken is working hard to grow opportunities in their area. And it's not just always in special. Sometimes we get together with a market and talk about blind hockey. We talk about sled. We talk about standing amputee and warrior hockey and special, all in one, conversation. And then we start to break it down into, doable things. Those partnerships really come back to what we talked about earlier, Lee. It was about communication. Right. It's about opening those doors of communication and bringing opportunities to see if they're a good match or if they're not. But we have to keep bringing those opportunities. And so that's a big part of what we do with the league. Obviously, folks know that Alex Ovechkin has been a supporter of special hockey for a long time. It's ever since he met a little girl who's no longer little. She's now, I think, 18 this year. And we took her on a sushi date, and they've been buddies ever since. And that's been a great relationship. And that's a very private one between the two of them. And they're still continuing to be friends. It's always fun to get on the ice with them, because all he wants to do is talk to Ann. And Ann's like, it's Ovi. Like, she just wants to go play. Like, she could care less sometimes. But we really like to work with the AHL. We had a meeting with them earlier this week about growing some stuff because we're developing those young players. So let's flip back a little bit and talk about when we're talking about our junior coaches and mentors. AHL players and ECHL players are just getting out of the juniors. They haven't done a lot of community stuff. If we can get them involved with special hockey, we're going to make them better community ambassadors for the brand, for the NHL club later on. And that is a big push. And everybody loves that. Nate Bastian, who was with the Kraken, now he's back with the New Jersey Devils. Nate was a volunteer with us here in Binghamton, and you can see his love going all the way through. And it's always great when he high fives the kids when they go down to the ice. They feel special. They have a connection. He has a connection with them. That is a lifelong friendship that hockey built, regardless of all the flashing lights and all the big contracts. It's a lifelong friendship that hockey built, and we like to go on that. Bauer came on board with us, ironically, because I was the mother of the year. It was kind of a funny thing.
Right.
I did a thing with the United Arab Emirates women's hockey team. They had given us a chunk of money. I called Bauer asking if I could buy wholesale. They kind of declined me nicely.
Yeah,
and
sounds like Bauer. Yeah.
Well, they're actually phenomenal, and they're an amazing partner. And Julie King noticed that I was the mother of the year for the state of New York in 2018, and for some reason that she saw it on my LinkedIn, and then she came back.
That's great.
Said, hey, can you take quantity? And I'm like, yeah. I didn't know that I was going to get. I mean, over the last 3 years, we've gotten close to $980,000 worth of equipment that we've distributed out, not just to special hockey, to any at-risk. We did Northern Labrador and we've done San Diego. So it's a pretty, we've done a pretty good crisscross across the nation and Canada with making sure that we're partners with Bauer. So Bauer is an incredible partner with us.
That's wonderful.
And whenever we need something, we give them a call, and we also partner back with them. So I guess if you want to talk about Rink of Dreams, it's a good time too.
Yeah, no, please. I mean, I think the, so, obviously you do a lot of showcases and you do a lot of these, like you said, 21, 22 tournaments around the country to cater to this group of hockey players. But tell us a little bit about the project you just finished and are using. And, I think it's a real great incentive for other organizations around the country to get going and get their teams geared up so they can come up and play. So I'd like to hear more about that.
So this past December, I was told that the second sheet of ice that we were going to use for our annual festival here in Binghamton got double booked. And I was like any other good hockey mom. I stomped around the house throwing quite a temper tantrum for about a day. And then someone said, well, you need to call this guy and use his backyard rink. And I'm like, no, I'm not using a backyard rink, like all the attitude, full on, embarrassingly. I was like, whatever, like, no. And so I called Christina and Larry Pierce, and I said, hey, it's been recommended for me to give you a call. And I'm like, well, Larry was so excited. Just come on up and see it. So 4 miles from my house, on top of a hill between a cow pasture and the horses grazing, next to the barn, I go down a dirt road. And I stop at the dirt road and I have the ugly cry that everybody during COVID, like all the COVID frustration, like I left it right there in a muddy mess. It was an ugly, pathetic cry because in front of me was a full-sized refrigerated rink outside with Wagyu cows on one side and the donkey calling me on the other. And I'm like, what is this? And not only that, it's all recycled, all of it. It's all recycled, like it's all refurbished. It's all like, oh my Lord. But the view is outlandish. It's the most gorgeous, peaceful place. And the Pierce family, the original Cornell scoreboard is recycled and refurbished up above. The Zamboni is a recycled one from the ice house, and it's painted like a cow. And the benches are these 35-foot long, white oak trees that were going to have to be felled because of the boar anyways. So they felled them, and they're these beautiful white oak benches. They're just tree trunks with the top flattened off. And But what they did was they made the entire, when I first visited, they were still pouring concrete around the pad and other things. And Larry's like, how do I make this the most accessible I possibly can? How do I make it so sleds can get on? How can I make it so your athletes can come up? And we're going to open this in January, Martin Luther King weekend for your event. And we're going to open this for special hockey. And he paid a whole lot of extra money to make sure it was ready. And it was minus 16. So what does he do? He buys a big bench heater and he starts heating the bench. And, we ended up having Omicron, so we could only have like 75 kids come to the first one. And which was really good because it was a perfect time to kind of try it all out. But if you could imagine having the most perfect outdoor rink, completely built and accessible for your athletes, sensory wise, physically wise, they get dressed in the barn and they come up via hay wagon. Can we talk about the hay wagon? And the dog meets them at the end of the hay wagon. And, and there's a baby cow named Annie, because she's an orphan, that's getting fed in the stall next. And like the amazingness of this whole entire family, like grandma came out, the uncles came out, all of the kids were there. And even better is the kids invited their hockey teams.
Oh my gosh, it's a field of dreams in real life.
It was that in everything. It was that in everything. And it has, and Matt Karkner, who used to play here in Binghamton, he rookied here. And then of course he went on to play pro and he left the Bridgeport Island Sound Tigers. He ended up being a coach on the bench with us. Sorry. And he stayed in this little house that's also all recycled. Larry happens to do demolition and construction. So this is part of how this happened. And he just kind of looked around. He's like, there's s'mores, there's a bonfire, like everything, sight, smell, everything it was about as soothing as it gets. And Larry and Christian obviously have a vision. It is a private rink. You can only come by invitation only. It's a private party. So when they said, let's do this again, when we said to have the whole festival all over again with everybody supposed to coming. So we welcomed 247 athletes from 26 teams from basically Michigan to Florida to the ice about 4 weeks ago, I think it was now. And it was absolutely incredible to watch it all happen. And we had kids parked down at the school and the county sent buses up and they dropped them off at the barn and up they came via wagon load. It's pretty amazing.
Sounds amazing.
You can see pictures. It's on our Facebook page, American Special Hockey. I think that's probably the best place to see pictures of it, but it is all that and more. And I think you'll see that kind of rink will have more and more. But Chris, I'm only 63 miles away from you. Come on down.
I'm gonna come. I'm gonna make a trip and see it. This is amazing.
We'll be playing a lot of street hockey on it this summer. They just pulled the ice out this past week. So, and that's the goal. But what that really was a gift. The Pierces didn't know, their kids had never played with anybody with special needs before. And then to loop back to what you said earlier, Lee, is that, Larry loves the game. His kids love the game. His wife is like, I like my horses and she likes the game, but she's like, this is about her husband's passion in many ways. And what she realized was that there's outside of the typical hockey experience, what she saw was this really wholesome community coming just to play and love the game. And that was a real heart changer. It wasn't just a game changer, it changed the way people's heart felt about the game. And you have to see it to believe it. And that's something I often say about our program. So not only did their faith in us and welcoming all of us to their backyard, as crazy as I thought it was, I was so wrong, they welcomed us to their family and we welcomed them to ours. And I think that was such a beautiful thing about our game.
It absolutely was, Jen. Jen, I'll tell you this. One of the things I love about doing this show with Mike and Christie and guests like you is that we're having those conversations that I don't think happen enough. And it's a great reminder to everyone that listens that this hockey community, the whole thing, it's so much bigger than anyone realizes, number one. And it just helps everybody refocus on that, it's bigger than just making the AAA team, whatever that is, right? Whatever that version is for the listener, right? And we've had this great opportunity to interview yourself. We've interviewed Puerto Rico hockey, obviously a lot of women's hockey, the military hockey, and hockey is hockey. It's just at the end of the day, and the ability to be part of the community. And what I find, and I want to close on this and give you the last word, obviously, is that I think sometimes people will look at an organization like yours and go, well, this is my way of giving back. I'm going to go join this. And what I always find is that when I do things I learn more from the people I'm working with than they probably learn from me. Right. It's a two-way road here. Right. And there are a lot of people out there that want to volunteer. They want to do things. Right. And the trick is you want to learn from everything that you do in this game. Right. Like I said it before, I coached mite hockey this year. I've never coached mite. I learned a lot. Right. Because I told them all the time, my experience at the upper levels has nothing to do with mite hockey. Right. Volunteering for organizations like yours, you'll learn a lot. Right. And it's a two-way road. So what I wanted to do is throw it to you real quick. If people are interested in finding you or finding the organization, wherever they are, how would they do that? Where do they look? Where do they find you?
Well, pretty easy. Specialhockey.org.
That is really easy.
Yeah, specialhockey.org. And that will link you to all of our teams, as well as a contact button for any questions. And what I'd like to encourage people to do is don't be afraid to ask those awkward questions. It's okay. There's pretty much nothing that can be asked of me that is going to be more awkward than some of the things I can tell you about, or won't tell you about. We've had some pretty awkward moments that aren't so awkward. It's amazing how many times special needs parents will get together in the stands and they'll be talking about things like, oh, you too? It's okay, but ask those awkward questions if you want. Ask about what you want to know or why. But I'd also challenge everybody to ask yourself why you haven't yet.
That's a great question.
Why haven't you contacted us yet? Or why haven't you tried hockey yet? Or why did you think somebody couldn't play hockey yet? Because if you've decided that they couldn't, then you've decided that they can't. They didn't decide that. So let's try.
I think that's a great note to end this on, Jen. First off, honored to interview a Mother of the Year. All right.
My kids might disagree.
Right. Well, that's one of the prerequisites, I think, that makes a Mother of the Year. No, but this has been a lovely, wonderful episode, eye-opening, but also educational. And I love that we had the opportunity to speak today. So thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. And thanks to all the parents for getting their kids out there to play hockey. There's for all your listeners out there who are making that effort. Thank you for making that. It's not easy to get up early in the morning. It's not easy to do all that, but that effort is just as much the game as it is them lacing up and stepping out. So thanks for taking that time.
No, and we want to thank you for being here. We want to thank you all for listening. That's going to do it for this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. For my co-hosts, Mike Benelli and Christy Casciano-Burns and Jen O'Brien, thanks so much for listening. Make sure you check out ourkidsplayhockey.com for more episodes. Wherever you can hear podcasts, we're available there. Check it out. Thanks so much, everybody, and have a great day. We hope you enjoyed this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. Make sure to like and subscribe right now if you found value wherever you're listening, whether it's a podcast network, a social media network, or our website, ourkidsplayhockey.com. Also, make sure to check out our children's book, When Hockey Stops, at whenhockeystops.com. It's a book that helps children deal with adversity in the game and in life. We're very proud of it. But thanks so much for listening to this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey, and we'll see you on the next episode.